Welcome back to the Encore Audio's YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. You know, I have found a spindle full of Sandy Beach. It says Sandy B on it, but it is Sandy Beach. He passed some time ago. You can look down in the description. It gives a description of how and when he passed. He was at a step study in his daily morning step study meeting and reading the first step, and what a way to go. Anyways, I found a bunch of workshops and individual talks, the Brentwood meeting. It's my full collection. I hope you enjoy this talk. Have a good day if you want to. I really hope you do.
Our main speaker tonight is Sandy B.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Sandy Beach, and I'm an alcoholic. And I can't tell you how happy I am to be here tonight. I really love Los Angeles AA. I have a lot of friends out here. And due to health reasons and other things, I've had to cancel several trips to come out here in the last 2 or 3 years. So this is really special for me. And next year, I'm really looking forward to going down to the Laguna group and see my hero Chuck's home group and talk to people that knew him, and so that's going to be special. I got sober on December 7th, 1964 up in Washington, D.C., and my home group is the Saturday Night Fever group in Tampa, Florida. If you're ever down there, come on over. We'll try and show you that we can get the energy level up a little high there, and you'll probably enjoy it. Before I get started, I wanted to thank everybody for the cards that you sent me last year when my daughters died. I have, I don't know how many there are, but they came from all over, AA groups, individuals, and in my living room I have 2 memorials to each daughter, and it consists of a basket filled with the cards that came from AA people all over, and then the program from their memorial service. And it's very simple, but it's the most powerful thing you can imagine, and it'll be there forever as far as I'm concerned. And my remaining daughter, who's in AA, came down to visit me, I guess about a month and a half ago, and she spent hours reading those cards. And it just, I can't tell you, I know there's people in here that were involved in sending those, and they mean a lot to my family, and I want to thank everybody. And the other thing I wanted to do is to tell you a couple of lessons that I got out of that. I'm not going to dwell on it, but I think it's important. Because of other people, other teachers, I saw certain things prior to these events happening, where my one daughter was murdered and the other one died of alcoholism. And because of that, the way that I was, the gift I was given on how to handle that was quite helpful. And so if any of you ever go through shocking things, I'm just going to give you these little thoughts. When you get the news, you have a period of time before you react to it. It's sort of a given. Normally you'll go, well, I'll go sit down and then I'll let it sink in. So I'm just saying, we're all given that. And the gift is to use that time to go right to God. Don't react to the situation yet. Go to God and just say, God, I want to do something first before I react to this. I want to assure you that I will not change how I feel about you. You will always be first. And I just want to reassure you that this is not going to change how I feel about you. Then go back to the situation, and guess who comes with you? And you're just given a whole different way of seeing things. And in my case, I found that I was able to forgive and accept that day. And I learned that the power of acceptance really exists in doing it in the moment that it happens, instead of waiting 3 months to finally accept something, or to wait 3 years before you forgive someone. So that's enough on that, but I just wanted to tell you that it was the most powerful thing. And the reason it's so powerful is it eliminates resentment, hatred, and anger, and all that's left is sorrow. And God will help you with sorrow. So it's the easy way is to always involve God. Anyway, enough of that, but I wanted to thank everybody for what you meant to my family. I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. I was born in 1931. The main event of my childhood was World War II. And it was a big deal. I hadn't started drinking yet, but I had learned a couple tricks as a child that came in handy. I learned how to think about things in a way that made my life miserable. It's a nice trick, and if you keep working at it, you can get better and better as the years go on, until you can ruin good news by just... Then you know you're on your way to becoming an alcoholic. Now, we don't take credit normally for this weird thinking. We blame it on things around us because we're never the ones that's at fault. And so I think I blame my parents for being too nice to me, and Catholic Church for scaring me in the confessionals and all those things. But it really was bizarre thinking about me. I spent a lot of time sitting around thinking about me and what's going on around me. And I made up a lot of stories about what was going on, because what was really going on was probably kind of boring. So I turned it into tragedies, and people are conniving against me, and this is unfair, and I'm terrified, and I'm probably going to die soon, and I'm worthless, and God never made a worse child, those kind of thoughts. It's a little hard to sleep, but you become very familiar with misery, anxiety, restless, irritable, discontent. And I'm not even 12 years old yet. So you can see, I got very good at this early on, and then later on, once I got into drinking, you get into advanced storytelling and advanced believing of storytelling. So anyway, with that sort of discontent and restlessness inside of me, I was trying to make a go of life. I was very popular. People liked me. I was a good student. I was a good athlete. People liked to be around me, but I didn't like being around me. I felt just uncomfortable. I just knew if they really knew me, yeah, it's the same story that just about everybody has. And so when I got old enough to go to college, I went to Yale, which was our hometown school, and I felt very inadequate there. The people came from all over the country, and they were smarter than I was, and richer and famous and all that, and I just could barely survive in a social sense. And when I was 19, I had my first drink at a little social event, and it took about 3 drinks for me to see the world as a friendly place. That was the magic of alcohol. Prior to alcohol, people were intimidating, nobody liked me. 3 drinks later, everyone loved me. I could see it in their eyes. I just ran around talking to people freely. My creativity came out. All the anxiety was gone, and I could at last be me. And I remember just going, this is unbelievable. I almost had the thought, I should have started drinking in grammar school. I could have saved so much trouble from that I was having. It was like a gift. And that's why I'm an alcoholic, is that I had that reaction. My friends who were drinking around the same time that I was. They thought alcohol was fun, that it made you have fun at a party. I didn't see it that way. Alcohol solved everything. It was the answer to life. I had been looking for the solution to life, and there it was. And so it became the top priority, and studies went out the window, athletics went out the window. Now I'm getting in fights, now I'm getting in trouble, and I barely graduated. The Korean War draft was still on. Everybody had to join the military, and we had some beers. And about 6 of us decided to join the Marine Corps. Sounded like a great thing to do after half a case of beer. Go on down and sign up for the Marine Corps. And after the initial shock, the Marine Corps has a way of greeting you that is quite unique. But you know you've been greeted when they get through. And after about 6 months, I started to fall in love with it. I just felt like I was part of something, and it made me feel comfortable. I just lost all that, whatever made me nervous beforehand, and I decided that I wanted to make it a career. So I went from knowing nothing about the military to want to make it a career. And at the end of infantry training, I saw a training movie about pilots, and it looked wonderful. I had never been in an airplane, but I knew I wanted to sign up for flight school. And I went over and signed up for it, and got married. Got orders to Pensacola, Florida, this lovely woman. We had 6 children together. And I got airsick on the plane down to Pensacola. And I got airsick in the old SNJ, but after about a month, the motion sickness went away, and I suddenly was home. This is where I belonged. I would be number 1 or number 2 or number 3 in each phase as we went through flight school, the going aboard the carrier, the night flying, and the formation, all that stuff. And by the time I got to Texas and got my wings, I was the happiest guy in the world. I just said, boy, I have really lucked out. And I got some training in El Toro, California, not too far from here. I was down there when Disneyland was built. And I got orders overseas, and the war was over. So I got to Japan, and I was in a great fighter squadron, and everyone drank as much as I did. That's what it seemed like. The colonel would order the drinks. We just sat around. We flew all day long and then went into the club. And I said, this is just the greatest thing in the world. How could it be more exciting? And I'd been there about 9 months when the maintenance officer and I were out in the end of the runway watching our buddies get ready to go aboard the carrier. And he started talking about getting promoted, get his own squadron, and he pointed at me and he said, and I want a pilot like you. I want nothing but the best. And as a young lieutenant, I just went, man, this is so cool. And then he said, but I wouldn't let you drink in the squadron. And here's a guy I'm getting drunk with all the time. And he makes a statement, so I never asked him about that. It was too frightening to even think what he might have meant. But when I got to AA, I realized what was going on. My drinking scared heavy drinkers. They saw something going on that they weren't familiar with. They were overseas for a year. They were just going to party and have a good time and then go home. They weren't sure what I was doing. I was at another level than they were at, and it frightened them. And so people saw the difference early on. I just thought I was the same as everybody else and went on. I had 14 years in the Marine Corps before they got rid of me for drinking. And I had some wonderful assignments. I was with the 1st Marine Division down at Camp Pendleton. And I was a flight instructor, and then I was with Jim over here in VMCJ-2 at Cherry Point during the Cuban Missile Crisis. And that was the end of my career. I had started to develop withdrawal symptoms in the airplane when I was flying. The disease had just progressed to that point. And so I wouldn't drink for 8 or 10 hours, and that was the worst possible thing you could do because I was coming close to having a seizure or something. There was no AA, there was no alcohol programs. I never heard of AA, so I decided I'm just going to have to survive this. And I would get in the planes, and I never knew what was going to happen. It might be all right, or I might be flying around with one hand on the ejection seat and fly the other hand. The stick had all the cameras and stuff, so you could get away with that. And my thinking was that if I passed out, I'd pull the curtain, I would eject, the chute would open automatically at 10,000 feet, the plane would crash, I'd be fine, and I had the feeling, wow, I just solved the problem. You know what I mean? Like, it didn't seem bizarre that particular solution that I came up with. And the end came on a cross country, and this was so amazing when I was at Brentwood about 4 years ago. Anyway, we were on a flight of 4 airplanes, and I decided that I had to get out of the plane. It was a Sunday afternoon, and I felt like I was going to pass out. A panic was setting in, and it was an old F-3D radar plane. It had 2 people in it, one radar guy and the pilot, and I realized if I left the plane, this guy didn't know how to fly. And so I was going to have to do something, so I declared an oxygen emergency, which means you have to land right away because there's something wrong with the oxygen. And so all 4 planes went down to some Air Force base. We went to the club, I had a few drinks, I felt better, but the next morning when I went down to the flight line, I told the flight leader that I wasn't going to fly anymore. Alcohol had decided that my favorite thing, my whole life, I was going to give up that morning. And he said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "I'm not going to fly anymore." "Why?" "I'm just not going to do it." So somebody else flew us back, and I had to go see the colonel, and he wanted to know, "What are you talking about, Sandy? You've been at this all these years." I said, "I'm not going to do it anymore." He finally had to take me seriously and send in the paperwork to Headquarters Marine Corps to get me a new assignment. And I had 3 months waiting for the reassignment, and I was so embarrassed I couldn't look at the other pilots. It was just total shame. I did the legal work for the 3 months, and finally I got transferred out of there, and about a year later I got so bad that the Marine Corps got rid of me. Anyway, a lot of people have heard this, but at Brentwood 4 years ago, I was getting ready to talk, and Jim's wife was coming up to get her 30-year medallion and was talking to Jim and said, "Sandy Beach is leading to me." He says, "Was he a pilot?" And Jim's not in AA, but he comes around a lot. And he said, "I think I know him. Tell him to come out here and talk to me." So I went outside, and there's Jim standing there. I've never seen the man in my life. And he looks at me and said, "In 1962, you were in a flight of 4 F-3Ds on a cross country, and you declared an oxygen emergency, and the planes had to land, and you never flew again." And I said, "Well, how did you know that?" And he said, "I was in the plane with you." And so, and then and I went, "Really?" And he said, it turns out he wasn't a radar guy. He was an airline pilot that had been recalled for the Cuban Missile Crisis. And we were on a hurricane evacuation, which is why all the pilots went, because when hurricanes come to bases, you fly all the planes where it's safe, you drink until the hurricane leaves, and then you fly home. So that's pretty choice duty, and there isn't any radar guys going to go on that. And he came up the next day to the Oxnard convention and brought photographs from the squadron and all that. And that would be a wonderful story in itself, but what he said next was the most important thing. He said, "Did you know how popular you were in that squadron? Did you know how much everybody liked you? It broke everybody's heart that you had to leave. The colonel did everything he could. We were trying to do it, and then when you left, we were so sad. And I went to myself, well, that's not the way I remember it. I remember everybody looking at me with contempt and feeling all that shame. So I had to go back to 1962 and change the past and put the truth in. And I submit to you that a lot of sobriety consists in doing exactly that. Going back and getting rid of your ideas about what happened and putting in what really happened. I heard a speaker many years ago, he started his talk with kind of a funny line. My story is divided into two parts: what happened during the years that I drank and what I thought happened during the years that I drank.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. And let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
And people really enjoyed that. But now that I've been working the program for all these years, I realize that you could say that about any part of your life. Your childhood's divided into two parts: what happened when you were a child and what you thought happened when you were a child. High school was divided into two parts: what happened and what you thought happened. And when we go through the steps, especially through 4 and 5 and 8 and 9, we get to see our life from a different perspective. And we have an entirely different perception after we get through talking with our sponsor about each one of these items, and after we finish making amends. And life is only perception. There's no other reality than perception. And so the way I saw it was official as far as I was concerned. And I reacted emotionally to the way I decided that things had happened. And when I plugged in the truth, I reacted quite differently. I was very comfortable with it. I was very happy to see the world in an entirely different fashion. They talk about our problem being self-centeredness. And I think it is the most perfect explanation of our problem is self-centeredness. And I remember when my sponsor finally trapped me in a corner where I had to admit that maybe I was self-centered. And I said, okay, I see that now. I guess I am self-centered. I said, I'm going to work on that, Bill. I'm going to do something about being self-centered. He said, oh, really? Like what? I said, well, I'm going to become unself-centered. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to stop being self-centered. He said, well, explain how you are going to not be self-centered. Go ahead and just show me. Give me well, I could stand over there. I would be in a different place. I mean, I had no idea. How are you going to not be self-centered? Turns out the only way out is to become God-centered. It's the only possible escape from self-centeredness. And self-centeredness is one of the most painful places you can be in, because things don't happen, they happen to you. There's a big difference. You know what I mean? It doesn't happen, it happens to you. In other words, the tidal wave, as that's coming short, I remember just going, if you were self-centered, you would go, not another tidal wave, you're not even in it. But it's inconvenient to even know there's a tidal wave. And why did they have to tell me? I don't want to. I got enough stuff on my plate without a tidal wave. I don't want to hear about tidal waves. And I don't care what it is. I remember one time somebody found another moon around Uranus. And I went, why don't they stop looking? I can't keep track of the moons that are up there now. If you would leave me alone a while, I might be able to calm down. That is self-centeredness. You can't help but take everything personally. and keeping track, and if this would only happen. And when we get to this wonderful spot, I learned a lot. There's two people that I really want to thank as my great, great teachers. One of them is Clancy, and the other one is Chuck Chamberlain. And they showed me ways of looking at things that are entirely different. Clancy specializes by telling stories and myths and for examples and these kind of things. And as he does that, you can see it differently. It has to be done indirectly. You can't talk about spiritual things directly. Stories are the best way of enabling people to see another dimension to their lives. And Chuck, of course, was just the master of it, and I was so lucky to meet him and go down to his house. And I can remember probably in the late 60s going down, and I'd sit in his living room and he'd talk spirituality, and I'd just sit there. I knew it was awesome, but I had no idea what he was talking about. But I knew it was awesome because he was talking about things that were at a different level. And then 30 years later, I'm going, so that's what Chuck was talking about. I'm starting to see it. And I feel very blessed that I got to meet him. And so my approach to Alcoholics Anonymous, when I sponsor people, I tell them that I am going to guarantee they have a spiritual awakening, and that's why I'm here. I'm your teacher and I'm your guide. And we're going to go through these steps, and when you finish, you're going to be a different person. You're going to be entirely transformed. And then we start on the journey. We get together 1 hour a week, and it probably takes about 5 months, and everyone has that transformation. It is just there. Everyone who tries it. I won't say there aren't people who just quit, but everyone who tries it has this experience. And if you're new, do not cheat yourself out of that experience. Don't settle for something else. Don't settle for something less. This is the highest life experience that there is to be able to go to the next level and see life and the world through the eyes of your Creator. The literature is so replete with precisely how this happens. And I remember early on, I would be off on, I had other goals. I was involved in service. I was involved in this. I was involved in that. But I realized that I was avoiding the very thing that my heart wanted the most. And that was to close the gap between me and my own Creator. That there was something built inside of me that told me things weren't right yet. And I did not understand that that signal was I was too far away from my Creator. And Dr. Young talked about that in the letter to Bill, when he talked about alcoholics were using alcohol at a low level in their search for God, and that the alcohol itself seemed to fix our spiritual problem of being separated. And it's hard to quantify what that experience has meant to me. I spend a lot of time reading, thinking about this, and trying to talk about it. It's an extremely difficult thing to talk about. It is not something that lends itself to just direct conversations. The thing I remember from Chuck, and I'd like to pass on, it's something that is quoted all the time when we talk about Chuck. He reduced almost the entire problem of being a human being down to these 2 sentences that he used all the time. When he said there's only one problem that includes all problems, and that problem is conscious separation from God. And there's only one solution that includes all solutions: conscious contact with God. So that means there's no such thing as any other problem. When we say we have a financial problem, we're saying I'm too far away from my higher power. When we say I'm having a sexual problem, when we say I'm having a job problem, I'm having a fear problem, we're too far away from our higher power. And as we get closer, the financial problem disappears. Not that money arrives, we just aren't worried about it. And the fear disappears, not that we were given courage, it's just that we just don't feel it anymore. It's a very paradoxical thing to realize it could be that simple. I remember talking to my sponsor, I was saying, are you telling me that there's one solution for all problems? Is that what you're trying to tell me? Here in Alcoholics Anonymous? I mean, how simplistic do you think I am? One solution for all problems. He says, well, wait a minute. What were you doing before you got here? I said, well, he said, did you ever have a problem and you said, well, here's a problem I won't be drinking over? Or when you had a problem, did you say, oh my God, I don't know how to handle this, but I will shortly. 1, 2, 3. 3 drinks. Yeah, it's clear as a bell. Tear it up. I don't need to do that. Well, I mean, if anybody understood the principle of one solution for all problems, it's us. I mean, give me a break. And yet when we come in here and we're talking about a power that's much more powerful than alcohol, we question it. And that's the struggle that goes on inside of me and every other human being. It's my ego versus relying on God. My ego versus asking for help. Asking for help is so difficult because I'm going to have to concede that I don't know how to do it, that I don't have all the answers to my own life. It's one of the hardest things to do. And that's where my pride comes in. And I remember when I came in, they said, pride's a character defect. And I went, I'm in the Marine Corps. The few, the proud, that's our motto. And my sponsor was also a Marine. And I said, Bill, I think they're trying to weaken our country. Here in AA, they're trying to talk us out of pride. How could pride be a character defect? This is, and we went through the whole thing, and I just couldn't believe that it was a character defect. And then somebody showed me that it heads the list of the 7 deadly sins, and I'm going, good Lord. The Marine Corps has been doing a lot of sinning over these last 300 years. And I realized that we were talking about 2 different worlds, the material world and the spiritual world. And in the material world, if you just want to operate there, pride can be a wonderful asset. It can spur us along. It can move us towards goals. But it can't make you happy. We will never find peace and happiness except through our connection with our Creator. I've never met anybody that made it except in that way. And it drove me crazy, and I wanted to be the exception. I wanted to find happiness intellectually. I wanted to find happiness on my own. Mostly I wanted to do it on my own. I wanted to be able to come back and go, you're wrong. I don't need all this stuff. How many of us tried that? And then we sat around. We may not have gotten drunk, but we were not happy. But we tried to pretend we were happy. How's it going? Great. Yeah, busy as hell. I'm over here. Yeah, doing great, doing great. Do you ever think of suicide? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. No, I was only kidding. No, I'm not thinking of suicide. I'm thinking of, we don't want to concede. There's a turmoil inside of here that won't subside. And you can't pretend it's not there. After a while, you finally have to just go, I'm freaking dying in here. Well, you want help? No, I'm not sure yet. I'm not sure. Let me think about it. I'm going to, okay. Okay, yes, I want some help, but this is the specific help that I want. No, I'm sorry, we don't operate that way. When you want help, I decide what help you get. And then you carry out what I tell you. Is that good? No, I want to think it over. I got to think it over. So the thing that finally converts us is pain. That's the secret to everything. That's why we don't have to have policemen in AA to make sure people follow the instructions. If we fail to follow them, alcohol is waiting right outside the door. Understand you don't like to follow instructions. Why don't you have a drink and join me? Okay. And then alcohol takes us for a year or two and says, I think you're ready to go back now. And that's where willingness comes from. The thing that holds AA together is alcohol. It's just sitting out there waiting. Alcoholics pay a heck of a price for trying to do it on their own. They pay a terrible price. But I really understand it. I've worked with guys, and pride is such a powerful force. I remember telling some people, there were some people standing outside our club, and the people inside the club saw me talking to them, and they were actually asking what was going on in there. And I didn't want to tell them because there were people in there that they might have known. And so I said, we're a group of people who can't make it through life on our own. And I came back in and told the people inside, and they said, well, I would have rather you said it's AA than telling them we can't get along on our own. Now, isn't that funny? We're all here because we can't get along on our own, but we don't want them to know. Now, I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is that makes us shy away from asking for help every day. It is the bane of our existence. It's the reason we don't have peace of mind. It's because somehow we're going to figure out how to do this thing on our own. And everyone in AA goes through that. I remember working so hard on the spiritual part of this program, and one of the problems with spirituality is it works. It works. It works like magic, and pretty soon it took away the problems that you had. You do have peace of mind. You are comfortable in your own skin. You do get along with other people. And you get the sense that you certainly don't need as much help as you used to. You get the sense that you've been placed in a much stronger position than you used to be in. The feeling of desperation is no longer there. There's the sense that I used to need help, but I don't need it now. And that's called spiritual pride. And it just comes in, and pretty soon we're going to have to learn another lesson. I found it with physical pain. I've had a lot of surgeries and stuff and had maybe 4 or 5 years of physical pain. And I found that it was breaking my connection with my higher power. And I was getting self-centered and snapping at people and doing all this. And the thing that was killing me was I couldn't believe that that could happen to me. I felt that my program should have been strong enough to withstand physical pain without batting an eye. That's called spiritual pride. And I had to just suddenly realize, you're just another human being. There's nothing special about you. Get with it. And it's sure nice to have the pain diminish and get back in a bigger comfort level with a few lessons learned there. It's about time for me to stop, and I wanted to just say something to those of you that are new. The greatest gift you're going to get in Alcoholics Anonymous is you. That's the greatest gift you're going to get, because you haven't got a clue what a wonderful person you are. You can't even imagine it yet. And if you stay here, they're going to force all of the false ideas out of you. They're going to take away the wrappings and the garbage. And you're going to start to shine. And other people are going to see it way before you do. They're going to see your eyes changing. And they're going to see your whole posture and your whole being start changing. And eventually you're going to become aware of it. And when you do, you'll probably feel like crying. You will be so happy to find out how wrong you were about everything. The greatest freedom you can have is to enjoy being wrong. So if you have a tough sponsor, tell them to get even tougher, because there's something inside of you that is going to just please you for the rest of your life. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs, long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.